Thanks for coming. This is an interview or conversation about the experiences of international students in Hong Kong coming to HKU. We're really interested in the real lived experiences of students. We're interested in the challenges they face. We're interested in what works, what doesn't. We're interested in how expectations change, how they didn't, how the sense of self has evolved, if it has, and try to understand the role of HKU in all of this. Just a disclaimer, I'm just a research assistant. I have no other affiliation with the university. I don't belong to any faculty. I don't have any ulterior motive. And I hope that this space feels safe for you to vent whatever you want to vent. If there's something you want to say, this is your chance. As I mentioned earlier, everything will be anonymized. You will not be identified. Also, during the course of this chat, at any point, if you want to leave, you can feel free to do so. You have the right to look at my notes. You have the right to ask what I'm writing down. You have the right to correct anything you've said. And also, after the interview, if you have any afterthoughts, you're welcome to send them through to us, and then, of course, we'll anonymize that. And then also, if you want to amend anything, you want to take away anything that you've said, withdraw anything that you've said, you have the right to do that also. So before we start, do you have any questions? No? Okay, great. Well, why don't you start by, you responded to the invitation to be in this study, and so I'm assuming there's a reason behind that. Why don't you start by just telling me what brings you here?
Imagine for you it's supposed to be rather difficult to find volunteers, so I always try to help. It's not the first interview I'm taking, not about study here experience, but just interviews and research made by university.
Right, okay.
So just help.
Right, thank you. Very kind, thank you so much. Okay, well, why don't you tell me about just arriving in Hong Kong, and since you've been back, overall, how has it been? Since you've been here, overall, how has it been?
It's my 4th year here. Yeah, I arrived in September 2014, I guess. The beginning experience was fine. I lived in the residence at university colleges. Honestly, here conditions Hong Kong proposed to students are much better comparing to what Europe, for example, is doing.
Okay.
Which is good in terms that, for example, the quality of the room is better, like bedroom, wardrobe, everything is much newer. But from other point of view, conditions are much, much worse because, I arrived here, I was 25. I set up for a college, which, not the best solution, but fine in terms of money and everything else, location. But I'm forced to follow a huge amount of rules, which I found, extremely dull and unacceptable for me. For example, what do they mean? Like, we cannot have guests after 19. Are you fucking kidding? Like, I'm 25. I'm not 17, 16 years old.
Right.
Also, this what they call traditions, like high table dinners. Such a fake stuff, such a bullshit, such lie, and just make an impression that they're pretending to be cool, high standard, but so fake and so unsincere. So it was first impression I get after half a year living here.
Right. So, okay. So it's, if I'm hearing you correctly, you arrived and it's good compared to Europe in the sense that it's clean, it's affordable, but worse because you found that it was very rigid. The rules within the residence is very rigid, and they have things like the high table dinners and other traditions that you find very insincere. Do you still live in residence?
No.
And was that of course not.
It was logical.
That was a reason in your moving out.
Reasons, yes, it was one of the reasons. Also, I really hated my neighbors. It was a complicated period, but for maybe several months. We had several assholes on the floor who were always not washing dishes in the kitchen, but it's not the worst case. Worst case, like in the morning you woke up, you go to the washroom and see that they don't flush water. And when it happens in Europe, in all the countries, but when it's like every fucking day for months, I start to question myself, what the hell is wrong with them? Like, is it so difficult to press a button? And I started to feel that, I really start to hate. I know that only one or two people on the floor were making this, but I start to hate all Chinese for this. I know it's wrong, but it was hard to control. That's why I start to think it's better to move out and independently. I don't have rules. I don't have high-table dinners. No neighbors on the floor, and it's better.
Right. So it sounds like the independent living life is more suited to you. I'm sorry you had to experience that. It doesn't sound very pleasant. I also have had similar experiences. It's different when you live with people. You see almost like a different side to people. So you mentioned that you found yourself sort of grouping certain groups of students based on their behaviors. Namely, you found yourself having this dislike for Chinese people. Can you talk a little bit more about that? What about in general? Now that you've moved out, has that changed?
Actually, negative. One thing which really I don't understand in Chinese culture, the first thing Chinese doing are lying. If they, for example, don't know the answer, or they, example, university needed to reimburse me for the field trip, so I called and asked where it will be done because I needed some dates to plan the finances. And first thing I heard in the telephone was a surprise, like, how you didn't receive it, blah blah blah. We will check. I asked secretary 1 week later about this. The secretary was in charge, and she said the person who is in charge for reimbursement simply need to do some bureaucracy, sign some papers, blah blah blah. So this surprise, which I received 1 week before, was completely fake. They knew that I didn't receive anything because they need to sign something.
Right.
So the first thing they did, they lied something. Maybe, as I understand, to save their face, but they don't think in advance, in future. I found that it was a lie just a week after. So What was the reason to do? Just say from the beginning, sorry, some papers, some bureaucracy, blah blah blah. I can understand as well. So this is maybe one of the things I don't like in the whole culture of Chinese people. Also, the idea of hierarchy in the society. I lived in Leipzig College, and the final reason why I moved out, they start to change the rules, but they didn't follow the procedure described in the official rules how to do it. And
how to change the rules?
Sorry?
How you didn't follow the procedure and how to change the rules?
They didn't follow their own procedure how they should change the rules.
Right.
So I started to question security about it, no answer. Start to question tutors about it, no answer. And at the end I say, you didn't follow your procedure, I'm following the rules I printed just right now from the website where I can find them. They thought that I violated the rules, we argued. When we had a meeting, I came with the rules to prove my idea, but their position was very strict, no, you violated it. You knew the rules, you knew rules, but we didn't print it, so you cannot find it online, but everybody should know them. So what the hell, you didn't provide the rules, but you are requesting us to follow them?
Right.
So for me it was very simple, the master just ordered, so we have new rule, but he didn't give a shit about the procedure, and everybody follow his order. So, see, in China you have society, you have rules, and then you have government, which is above the rules. For me here, like the master of the residence thought that he is above all the rules and he does not need to follow them, and he can violate them very easily. And well, so far I believe that this is one of the also cultural aspects of Chinese. Like if you're very high in the society, then nothing can be done to you, and you are above the rules.
Right. That sounds very frustrating, and I can.
Well, I know, like, you can also say that, for example, in Europe you have the same story because a king also is above the rules. But historically, kings and queens, for example, like in Britain, they are violating rules, but they were showing to the society that they are following them. So at least, like, they show that they follow the rules. But here, they, like, strictly violate them, and nobody gives a shit. Nobody can do nothing to them.
Right. So they have all these rules that they try really hard to enforce, but then the second they change it, they expect you to know.
Well, they send email with new instructions, but in the official rules, they should print them. They should make a notice on the board, and they should. Well, for me, ideally, if they apply new rule, they should reprint the old rules and make them online.
Right.
Like with laws, government is doing. Nobody in the government cannot refer to the email sent to you like 6 months ago and blah, blah, blah. It's simply non-serious, non-professional.
Yeah. So when you say they, who are you referring to? The
administration of the residence, but, well, I don't know the names because email is just unnamed.
Right. No, I was just wondering, was it like a student? Was it staff? Was it... So it's at the administration. Okay. So they weren't helpful. They weren't the administration of the residence were not helpful. Was not helpful.
Well, I cannot say that I needed help because at that moment I was already thinking, it was just beginning of summer, and I was already thinking, okay, I will live this summer in the residence, but from autumn I really need to move out. So they just accelerated me a bit for like 1.5 months.
Right.
So it was not so dramatic, like they didn't change my life so much.
Right.
But for me, it was just showing the real face of how things are doing, which was not so pleasant and
right.
Not so good.
Yeah, not so good. So do you think that this, does this sort of situation, can it be generalized to the rest of the university, or was this an individual, isolated event for you? This sort of treatment of, or this hierarchy that you're referring to?
Well, I don't have enough statistics to say here. It was individual case.
Right. Which is most important. We're talking about your experience. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, from one point of view, I want to generalize it, but from other point of view, I don't have enough statistics to do it.
Right.
We can refer here that, for example, China and Hong Kong, China signed agreement with UK, but now China doesn't give a shit about it. But this, well, I don't know, it's high politics, and maybe it cannot be referenced here for, university accidents.
Right.
I don't know.
Well, it's completely up to you. If you want to talk about that, that's okay also. So apart from this incident or this situation with the admin of the residence, what about your experience with the school, your faculty?
Well, honestly, I want to have an answer on one question. Why we have tuition fee here? Like, if we compare again with Europe, in Europe it's like 200 euros per year, but the quality is much higher than here. For me, after experiencing HKU, the market of education is the most frustrating and illogical. Like, for example, you have application on a phone, you have free of charge application, which is usually worse than paid application, yes? The same with everything, with all the items we can buy in store. But with education, it's completely reverse, and price does not reflect the quality you have. Like here, the faculty, this university sends like 40-something the rating, but the international ratings. But for example, the size of my faculty, like extremely small compared to what Europe can propose. Yeah. So, and I cannot say that this university can match your opinions in terms of standards and the quality they provide here.
What sort of measurements do you use to gauge the quality of your education?
Well, number of departments, number of professors in the departments, number of courses they provide, and the quality of courses they provide, and such kind of things.
Right. Okay. Okay. Well, that sounds very frustrating for it to be so disappointingly, for the quality of education to be so disappointingly low for you.
Well, I cannot say it's much worse than Europe, but for example, I can recommend to students this place for bachelor studies, but for master, definitely no.
What are some reasons for that?
Well, for example, in Europe you have faculty of physics with a lot of departments. You can study astronomy, optics, nuclear physics, high energy, solid states, and so forth, a lot of specialities. And each specialty has a lot of special courses related exactly to this field. What we have here we have astronomy, that's all, and just optics, maybe solid state physics. They do not develop real modern branches of physics, for example, like high energy physics, which is like big branch, and a lot of other faculties, universities develop in this area. But here they have only one professor. The same about like nuclear physics, only one professor. Like, are you kidding me?
One professor?
Yeah, like it's completely unserious. And if this university was new, we can always say that this is just a new university, we don't have enough people, but they didn't have time to invite a lot of people. But this university is like 100 years old,
Right.
and it really lost a lot of openings in science, and a lot of things just passed through it. So I don't get why this happened.
Right. So, sounds like you think it lacks in variety, diversity, availability of courses, professors. Okay. So that makes me beg the question: what made you choose HKU?
Well, it was a bit coincidence.
Okay.
A bit like I was looking for a PhD 3 years ago,
Right.
and I got email with the contact person was a French professor, so I thought everything would be in France. And topic was quite interesting because we have experiments in Japan.
Right.
So I thought, well, maybe I should give it a try because Japan, France, well, sounds quite good. But during the interview with French professor, he mentioned, like, by the way, did I tell you that everything will be in Hong Kong? And at that moment, I'm like, shit, what? I googled Hong Kong, where is it? Oh my God, so far. But at that moment, they proposed me nothing, so I thought that it would be rather stupid if I will say them no before they give me any proposition. So I decided, okay, let's wait, and maybe they won't invite me, and everything will be fine. But HKU invited, and at the end of the summer it was, they give also scholarship, everything. So at the end of the summer it was the only like 100% position. And also at that moment I didn't check precisely the size like of the faculty. Well, I checked the website, but I didn't go really deeply in amount of departments and everything else.
Right.
Yeah. So that's how I made it. But when I came here, I started to dig and to realize it's not so highly developed place for physics.
Right. So it was mainly for the 100% scholarship opportunity.
Yeah. Well, still experiments. We still do experiments in Japan, so it was also a big plus for this position.
So you get to travel over?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Is that interesting for you? Is that your the highlight of the course?
Have you ever worked with Japanese?
No.
Well, it's like in hell. You have nowhere to run. Yeah, it's really worth to try in your life. But at this moment, I don't want to live in Japan. No, thank you. But they're too crazy.
Crazy in what sense?
Well, For them, like what I noticed comparing Japanese and Chinese, Chinese society everybody live for themselves, like Chinese people.
Right.
But Japanese people, they put the society in the first position. And if society needs you to work like 20 hours, they will work 20 hours. For example, in Japan, in any store, you can buy some very small energetic drinks, which are extremely powerful, like much more powerful than coffee. I tried it once, I didn't sleep for 20 hours. And I tried it in the evening after a full day of work. And I noticed that a lot of Japanese drink it. So, and they really don't take care of themselves. They work for the society, and we see accidents when they just walking on the street and falling down dead because of overload.
Overworked, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and after like experience it a bit for a month, you don't want to make it one more time.
Doesn't sound very. It doesn't sound like a life that many would want to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well. So you were offered this position. You were offered a place at HKU. Decided to take it. What sort of expectations did you have before coming here?
I cannot say I was really expecting something. I was really
Very open-minded.
Well, before Hong Kong, I studied in France for 1 year, and I had some expectations, but at the end of the day, I found that everything is completely different from the way I was expecting it, and I was dreaming about it.
Right.
Not negative, not positive, but simply different.
Right.
So after this, I don't see like quite logical to really expect something. Everything will be like it will be, and we cannot predict it, and we just lose time thinking how everything will be done. And it's like planning your life 10 years ahead.
Right.
It will never come true, come on.
Right.
Same here.
Yeah. So you just didn't really expect anything because you knew from previous experiences that it was just going to be different, not necessarily better or worse, just different from your expectations.
Well, I saw Hong Kong before in movies, like everybody see these movies with Jackie Chan. And I was expecting to see something like this. Well, first week I went to Bangkok and I see that Hong Kong, so I was not surprised.
Right.
I was really expecting that kind of streets, narrow streets with
Right.
a lot of neon signs, and I get them.
Right.
Yep.
So how has... Okay, so you didn't really have any expectations to meet because you didn't really set many. You didn't set many before you came. Ever since being here, though, sounds like it is. Sounds like it's different to. I don't think expect is the right word. Different to what you would want.
Well, once again, comparing to European universities, there, I think programs are much more developed. For example, here they just let you choose whatever you want without real deep thinking whether you will need it or not. For example, like in physics, you cannot learn quantum mechanics without learning classical mechanics. Well, you can give it a try, but it won't work perfectly.
Right.
Like in Europe, it will never happen because they will force you to do it in historical order and logical order.
Right.
But here, what I see from some students, they like first year, but they take quantum mechanics. Come on, you don't know math for this, you don't know physical background for this. It's like simply a waste of your time and resources. And I also feel that here, professors, they don't put really a lot in the lectures. They just give them, but they don't care too much about quality and but maybe I'm wrong. I didn't take a lot of lectures here, so.
Okay. And in selecting courses and things like that, you said that the program seemed less developed to you. Did you find yourself in a position where you took a course and it just didn't make sense to take that course because you hadn't taken something else and no one had advised you? Or what makes you say what you said earlier about know, like people don't give enough thought to the courses that they're taking?
Well, just it's more surface impression because, I'm tutoring some courses, so I don't, I cannot say I like the content. I think it's, not enough, more school level, what we have in Europe
Right.
for engineering students. Also, I really didn't enjoy that university was forcing us to take these graduate school courses. For me, it was just a waste of time. Maybe good part of them, I was coming, signing myself on a paper, and leaving the first chance I had.
So you have to take these graduate student courses, mandatory ones?
Yeah.
Are they related to your course or your program?
Of course, several of them were quite interesting, like thesis writing, article writing, but once again it was, I cannot say I really took a lot of advices from there. Because one thing is to sit and listen how you should write, other thing is really to try to write.
Right.
And nobody can teach you in a lecture how to do it perfectly. You should simply sit and start and fail and start and fail.
Right. Is that what you did?
This is how everything is done, I guess. No.
So when you start and fail the things that you do you have support and access to faculty?
What do you mean by support? Support by whom?
Have you ever sought support from faculty?
No, but if you do such things like article writing, you usually do it with your supervisor, so you're not
your
alone
supervisor.
here. Yeah?
Right. What about your supervisor? How is your as a member of HKU?
Here there's no direct answer because as I said, she's the only one in her department, so I can imagine how much things she needs to handle. And of course I feel that this thing can be done better, that thing can be done better, but this is from my perspective without facing all her problems. So honestly speaking, like putting my arm on the heart, I cannot say I can blame her for something. Nothing is perfect, but I imagine how many things she's doing only by herself.
Right.
So I guess this is more a problem of a faculty who really put one person in charge for the whole branch. And
yeah. Do you think that because there's only one person for everything, the only one supervisor, does that compromise your education?
It's very easy to blame other people for your failures or mistakes. That's what all people are doing usually, trying to find reason in other person. But I deeply believe nobody can give a precise answer on your question because it's impossible to check this experimentally. Like we cannot reverse time and then try. So I will say no. Like there are always a set of reasons why things happened exactly this way, and we cannot. I cannot say that this reason among the list was the main or something else.
Yeah. Right. So do you? So it sounds like she's probably doesn't have that much time for every student, right? She's the only one.
No, she has. We still have regular meetings.
Right.
Yeah.
Is she useful? Is she useful for you, or do you feel yourself looking for more support, resources from the department?
I cannot say that I liked how everything was organized from the beginning. I didn't have a solid topic to work, so I was just passing from one topic to another, not concentrated. Which, like in case of Europe, from the entire beginning, you will be given an exact topic with the plan of work, with how things should be done.
Right.
Here they don't have it, but I guess maybe this is the culture. I don't know. Maybe everything is done like this in Asia.
So, Do you think that you're given much autonomy in what you can do?
Yes, and I cannot say I really like it.
Okay.
Maybe in some psychology, autonomy is good, but like in physics, especially when you analyze data, there is exact like set of procedures. You need to do this, and without clear guidance, sometimes you can miss something, or you can do it without putting a lot of attention, so you do some mistake, and so on and so forth.
Right. So it doesn't sound like the way that the supervision and resources are structured really fits your working style.
Well, I was expecting, before coming here, I was expecting that things will be done more like in Europe.
What does that mean? What's a European way of doing things?
Well, in Europe, your supervisor is like your teacher who is guiding you. Like showing you possible mistakes, maybe letting you do these mistakes, but more controlling you. Here, supervisor is more like a project manager. She gives you, or he gives you data to analyze, but a lot of things you have to find by yourself.
Right. And is that problematic to your learning?
Well, not like when you have clear guidance, it's just faster.
So it's a productivity issue or an efficiency issue.
Yeah.
Affects efficiency. What are some, well, apart from the obvious of having a different supervisor with a different style of supervising, how do you think this could change?
Well, if I have a time machine and will reverse time 4 years before, well, I cannot say I will choose a Chinese supervisor. For me, well, maybe European one is closer and easier to work, but once again, different people, different experience. There is no clear answer here, I guess.
So I've heard you mention the word culture a few times throughout the course of our discussion, and culture is such a broad term and it's so vague, it could mean many, many things. Could you talk a little bit more about culture as a barrier for you?
Well, usually I don't care about cultural background of other people, but I think like the logic of Chinese is to let you do everything by yourself, and you will learn it by yourself, and this is like the best way of learning, which I highly do not agree, because I take it a bit irresponsible. You just let a person do whatever he wants, then the person may fail, but then you say like, it's not my problem, he was doing everything by himself, so it's not me who is in charge of his failure. Like we have now a student in our lab who is doing some kind of project, but when a student came, I asked him, okay, what you're supposed to do? But he said, I don't know. And it was after the talk with supervisor about his research project. So for me, such things are, well, a bit frustrating, like how you can let a person take a project without clear setting a goal for him. I know that Chinese will say it's he should set it by himself, blah blah blah. But come on, it's so for me it's simply irresponsible. You just don't want to be in charge of anything, and like you wash your hands and distance yourself from that kind of things.
Right. So it's a responsibility, or is it an accountability? Is it about accountability?
I don't know exactly how to name it. I want to say it's irresponsible because, well, that's maybe my personal preference. But I didn't ask directly, like the supervisor, why exactly she let that student to come without clear understanding what he's supposed to do. Maybe she had her own background ideas that he needed to do everything by himself and blah 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 and blah blah blah. So I don't know full picture, full story to answer you.
Yeah. Okay. I don't want to phrase this in a. Okay, let me ask a different question. So, if culture plays a role in supervision styles and culture affects behavior and ideology, which I'm sure it does to a certain degree, and Hong Kong U being a university or an institution in a Hong Kong or Chinese culture, how do you see this problem worsening or getting better, and how? For students such as yourself who this teaching style or this supervision or this ideology just doesn't work for you.
I don't know the precise answer, but as I said before, I think bachelor programs here are more or less fine compared to other universities. And what I noticed, nobody is really willing to do masters among students, which is, I think, quite good. Everybody go to work after bachelor. And maybe for job market is absolutely fine. They train you by themselves the way they need. So in general, it do not affect too much the productivity of the city. Because here, impression I have, like this university is number 40 something, the ratings, but these ratings are made by lawyers and medicine. Like two big branches that really pushing university ahead. It's not science, not like social science, not humanitarians, but medicine because city needs this, and lawyers. City needs a lot of lawyers here. So university is developing the branches city needs. It does not work on the whole country, but on the small city. That's why it is developed like it is developed, I guess.
Developed the departments that Hong Kong needs the most.
Yeah.
And you don't think this is science?
Well, it's obviously no.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about, earlier you mentioned the bureaucracy within the bureaucratic behaviors within, I think you were referring to the residents. You were referring to the university as a whole.
Well, but I cannot say I've really faced here a lot of bureaucracy. Compared to France, here you need to sign several papers and you're done.
Right.
So it's much, much easier.
Okay. Is that a positive thing?
Well, honestly, I don't care. Just bureaucracy comes from rules, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to follow the rules. And if something is done in such a way, for example, in France you have a lot of bureaucracy, but you have huge social protections standing behind this bureaucracy. So yeah, you have to sign now a lot of papers, but in future they will protect you.
Right.
And for me, it's fine, acceptable.
Okay. What about in terms of socially in Hong Kong? How has that, in HKU, within HKU and in Hong Kong in general, how has that been for you?
Social integration, you mean?
Yeah, social integration.
Well, at the beginning it was not so perfect, not so easy, but not so hard at the same time. Like when I came here, for maybe half a year I didn't have really close friends, but after you start to talk more with people and it's getting fine. But I don't think that all these evenings, like wine evenings, other events really socialize a lot, because what I hate in residence that they force all the people to join some activities, something, which by the definition will not work, because when you force people, take its physical law, you push them one way, they push you backwards. So
these are the events you're in within the residences you're talking about.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, I never joined them, but they always force people to join. So I don't think it's really workable when it is made by force.
Right, because the person didn't want to be
Yeah.
there on their own.
Yeah.
Well, okay. What about outside of the residence? Or is there much that HKU can offer to you socially?
What do you mean?
Like outside of
the-
residence, the event, there are flyers everywhere. Is there anything that caters to your interests?
Well, I joined them several times. They were fine, but well, I don't have a lot of time to take part in every party.
Right.
And sometimes, well, it's much easier just to go somewhere with your friends outside HKU and like to do it by yourself.
Yeah. So your main social engagements are independent of the university.
Well, mostly, yeah.
Okay. Did you ever? What about your interactions with the admin, or how?
Admin.
Did you ever have? What have your experiences been with non-teaching staff? Have you had any positive or negative experiences with them, with documents or questions or resources?
No, everything was fine. I cannot say any negative. Well, I can say negative about the teaching staff. Like I find them here quite snobbish, once again compared to Europe. Like we are invited to help professors with exams, for example. Yeah, we spend all exam with them, collect papers, ask students questions, and so forth. But next morning you pass like through, but they don't even manage to say hello. For me, well, it's quite snobbish compared once again to what's happening in Europe.
Doesn't sound very. Does that make you feel like undervalued or disrespected?
Well, I cannot say I feel disrespected, but for me, well, you worked with that person. Yeah, you're not a student, you were helping him with his exam.
Right.
So I think it's fine to say like good morning or hello after this.
Right.
With just no interaction further, just hello, I don't know. For example, Japanese, they are better in this case. Like I know several professors from the Japanese institutions. We also do not communicate a lot, but when we see each other in the corridor, we just say hello because, well, I guess it's normal behavior. You know, person, you say hello to him.
Right.
But here's a lot of times it do not work.
And does that affect your? How do these interactions or lack of interactions with teaching staff that you have worked with play into your sense of community in the school?
Well, I don't feel here. I really feel that there is a big gap between PhD postdocs and professors. There is no interaction at all. We are tutors here, so we're involved in the educational process. But we're never invited to any meetings. We're never shared any ideas, any directions, any problems students have. For me, it's rather unlogical because it is influencing the way we do the tutorials, the way we teach. Yeah, and I guess there is no lack there. Simply communication does not exist between professors and all other members of the faculty.
So it's the professors. Okay. So would it be fair to say that you are not given access to certain? This lack of communication doesn't give you access to the things that you need to be an effective tutor, or?
Well, I think it's okay, every year we have this questionnaire among students. After they listen to the course, they pass some questionnaire about whether they like it, they not, whether it was useful, and so on and so forth. And the same they have about tutors. So every year they were like twice per year. Students were filling this questionnaire about me, but only previous year my supervisor decided to share it with me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what about other semesters? Why I didn't have any output of my work? It can be negative. I accept it, but I need to know whether I'm moving in the right direction or wrong direction. What exactly I should improve in my skills, maybe.
So you're the professor's withholding this feedback from you?
Maybe. Well, I don't know who exactly. Maybe it was the politics of the faculty. Like, I didn't ask this question directly. But for me, it's strange that they were not sharing this for till the last moment.
And would you say that this affects your teaching quality?
Well, I think it can improve. Well, at least I can face my own mistakes,
Right.
and I can change them for other generations and other courses.
Right. Sorry, 1 second. Okay. Well, this doesn't sound very the lack of communication between professors and the rest of the faculty doesn't seem to be having positive impacts on your ability to teach and deliver. Have you ever raised this with anyone before?
No, not on the faculty, just among other students, yes,
Right.
but not
Right.
with professors.
And would you say with the other students, you mean other tutors?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do they have similar experiences? Do they have similar thoughts about this?
Well, yes, with the person I was discussing it, like that lady also agreed that we should be shared some kind of information, the statistics, just to know, and why not to share?
Right. Does it make you feel? How does it make you feel in terms of like a member of the faculty or a member of the university?
I cannot say that it really like hurted or insulted me, but I believe this is just an optimized system. They're not trying to improve it, and I think that's the problem.
They're not trying to improve.
Well, it's like feedback on Amazon. Bad products get bad feedbacks, they are removed from Amazon, yes?
Right.
Same can be done here. We receive feedback, some of them are bad, but we don't know what to improve. So for me it's not about insulting or hurting somebody's feelings, but just an optimized educational process. Which is also a question about like for what students are paying here. If system is not improving itself, like why it should be paid for such education.
Right. If you wanted to get feedback, where would you go? Do you have access to someone that you could talk to about your personal performance, or do you feel that that's not available here?
Well, it's good to discuss. Well, if I'm asking students, like, if you ask about feedback, well, students are the ones who are giving feedback. So it's useful to hear their own feedbacks about the way everything is done. And
But you don't get that?
well, not so far. Well, we were not so close, I would say.
Right. Okay. Okay, we've got a little bit more. Are you in a rush?
Well, and how much time do you want more?
About 10, 15 minutes,
Okay,
maybe. Yeah.
fine.
I just want to go over, make sure we covered a lot. I just want to review. So I guess we're kind of talking about the question 3 over here. In what ways did access to social or material resources help or hinder your ability to continue your studies? But in terms of teaching and the access to like feedback and things like that, are there any other social or material resources that you've looked for that you haven't been given or that you have been given, and how has that influenced your studies?
Well, several times I asked my friends to download some articles for me, because this university didn't pay the access to that magazines.
Okay.
Yeah, but I can.
You mean like the online journals?
Yeah, but it was just few times, maybe 1 or 2 times, so I cannot say it was really a big issue, and it was solved like in 15 minutes.
Right. But I mean, this is as an educational institution.
Yeah.
They should have access to.
Yeah, they have access, but this university did not.
Okay, and have you brought this up with anyone before?
No.
Right. Okay, access to. So your friends have personal access to it. That's how they can print it.
Yeah.
Apart from access to journals, do you think that the school is well resourced in terms of?
Yeah, quite good.
Okay. Do you have any other experiences with looking with social and material resources?
Well, honestly, I can find anything I need.
It's easy.
So yeah.
Have you ever come across issues in finding something, or you couldn't find something, so you asked someone?
No.
No.
Never.
Easy to find. That's good. That's positive. Okay. Okay, and finally about your sense of self, and success and fulfillment and goals and expectations. How have they changed over time, if they have?
Well, I decided to do PhD because I didn't have quite big ideas what to do in life. I guess this is the story of 90% of all PhD students. So I cannot say I have clear mind about what to do after I finish PhD. Yeah, so I cannot say this university gave really clear ideas what we can do after with this education. And before with master degrees, I was sure that I will use them in life, but PhD degree, a lot of jobs do not require it, so I'm afraid it can be a bit useless.
Useless, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But we'll see how it will be done.
And just me repeating back what you said about just now about how you were sure what you wanted to do after masters, and then you kind of went to a PhD not really knowing what you wanted to do with the PhD, and now that you're in your PhD you don't really know. How does this affect your sense of self? Or let me rephrase, how has the university failed, or how has the university helped or hindered your refining of a goal?
I don't think that this is a problem of a university itself.
Right. Okay.
Maybe it's more my personal problem. Like, I have like a part of friends who have very simple jobs, they hate them, but they need to work because they need to eat something. And I was always afraid of making such choices. Like, for example, after PhD, I will have a part of choices, and it's very important to make correct one, because if you fail, it's really difficult to reverse everything and in time. And like you fail, and then you find yourself every day doing some boring job you hate, and sounds like a waste of time and life. That's what I'm really afraid of. But I cannot say that university is in charge for changing this somehow, and I cannot say somebody else is in charge except me for changing these things.
Okay. So it sounds like you have pretty high expectations of the quality of life that you want to lead.
But what is high expectations?
Something that fulfills you. You want to feel fulfilled in what you do, and not just do something for the sake of the money or for the sake of having a job or for the sake of... correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, for me, high expectations sounds like expectations of a rich life. That's why I'm against such wording.
Right.
But yes, I believe it's almost obligatory to do what you like to do. But when you find yourself with no choice but doing this kind of job because you need money, that's a failed choice, because you will hate this job and not so good.
Would you say that intellectual stimulation is more important? What other things are more important in your fulfillment than wealth?
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Has the university affected that in any way?
Well, as we discussed before, there is a lack of communication between professors and students. So I think it also influences on intellectual situation in the faculty. It's faculty of science, but there is no spirit of science inside. So we cannot say developing a lot.
Right. So you see the lack of spirit, the lack of spirit of science is reflected in the...
Well, for example, I'm here 3 years, and every year we have Nobel Prize, yes? And this year was the first one when they started to discuss Nobel Prize winners, giving lectures about it.
Right.
What was going on previous years?
Right.
They were just passing through this event unnoticed, or how? It is one of the most important events in the scientific community, but they didn't manage to talk about it. For me, it's a real lack of scientific spirit here.
Do you think that relates to the way that the university sees the value of science in relation to Hong Kong's success?
I don't know. I don't know why it happened like this, but just a fact.
Yeah. Okay. Well, before we wrap up, I want to give you a chance to say anything that we haven't covered, anything that... we started this discussion by talking about what brought you here and what drove you to participate in this study, and you said because you volunteer for studies, and that's very nice of you. Is there anything else that you've been wanting to say, or that we haven't really touched on, or that you'd like to go over in terms of your experience?
Well, about why I came here, as I said, volunteering, but I also believe that such questionnaires can improve something. And I really believe that this place has a lot of big room for improvements. That's why I'm trying to do it.
Yeah, and that's the purpose of this study is to push for policy change and for change within the uni that will affect so many students. And we really appreciate hearing these true lived experiences from students. And on that note, I guess we could finish.
Okay.
Yeah?